All right, welcome back. If you're looking for the weird side of the internet, you've found it.
Definitely. We're doing another deep dive today.
Yep, pulled this one straight from Reddit's, our Redditor updates. It's like getting the highlights without scrolling for hours.
And it's interesting, how these personal stories online can actually show us a lot about, relationship dynamics in general, like little case studies.
Totally. Okay, so get this. We've got a 19-year-old, the original poster, OOP, right? University student, gets booted home because of lockdown.
Ah, the pandemic effect.
Exactly. And her boyfriend, also 19, suddenly decides her 22-year-old stepbrother, SB, is basically public enemy number one, romantically speaking.
Right. That lockdown period really put a strain on things. Small issues probably felt huge all of a sudden for a lot of couples.
Oh, for sure. So the question floating around this whole mess is like, should OOP even bother trying to fix things with this guy? Is this jealousy thing salvageable?
That's a tough one. Can a relationship built on suspicion ever really, work long term?
Good question. We're digging into the original post and all those glorious Reddit comments. Think of it as our source material.
The internet's collective wisdom, or lack thereof sometimes.
Yeah. So our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to figure out what went sideways here, find the insights, and maybe have a few laughs. Smosh style, kind of.
And hopefully pull out something useful about navigating these tricky relationship bits based on what strangers thought.
Okay, let's get into it. First thing, OP decides not to move in with the boyfriend. Smart move, honestly. It was him, 4 roommates, 1 bathroom during lockdown.
Yeah, that sounds crowded and maybe a bit risky, legally speaking, too.
Right. She mentioned being an illegal tenant. Anyway, boyfriend was not happy. Major sulk fest.
That initial reaction from him, it might be more than just disappointment about the living situation, maybe about feeling like he had less oversight.
Could be. Then the jealousy really kicks off. Target, the stepbrother, SB. Apparently, OOP's big crime was spending time with her stepbrother.
Doing what exactly?
Oh, scandalous stuff.
Yeah.
Like practicing driving. She had her learner's permit. Roads were empty. Made sense, right?
Seems pretty normal, yeah.
And they hung out, watched things, on a screen together.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking.
Uh-huh.
And the absolute worst, they had a picnic in their own backyard. The nerve.
Right. So from his point of view, these totally mundane things get twisted because he's already feeling insecure, maybe. It's not the what, it's the who.
Totally. But then he apparently goes full cyberstalker on SB's Instagram, sees something.
Oh, boy.
And boom, accuses her of going on quarantine dates because lunch outside your own house is obviously code for a secret affair.
That level of checking up, the Instagram stalking, that's a big lack of trust right there. It borders on obsessive.
And the demands, the rail decrees start rolling in. Boyfriend says OP has to stop hanging out with SB entirely. Full stop.
Wow, okay.
And D, she needs to up her FaceTime and texting game with him to 3 or 4 hours.
A day. 3 to 4 hours, on top of what they were already doing.
Yeah, they were already doing like an hour minimum. It's practically a part-time job in appeasing the jealous boyfriend.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag. Trying to control who you see, how much time you spend, often that's about isolation. Keeping your focus only on them.
So Okapi is, like, understandably torn. Part of her wants to tell him where to shove it, but another part remembers they used to have a good thing, supposedly.
That history can make it really hard to see the present clearly.
And she kind of wonders if this whole meltdown is just because she refused to move into that 1-bathroom madhouse.
It's easy to cling to the before times, but you really have to look at what's happening now.
Right. Okay, let's get to the Reddit comments. The peanut gallery weighs in. One person just flat out says he wanted you to live there so he could watch you.
Direct.
And OOP was like, whoa, hadn't thought of that. But then she remembered he had actually said something about feeling out of control.
Sometimes that outside perspective is exactly what you need. It cuts through the emotional fog.
Totally. Another commenter was just like, tell him to get lost, basically saying this jealousy isn't going away because SB is family. He's always going to be around.
That's a really crucial point, the long-term view.
And that apparently really hit home for OOP, like realizing this wasn't just a temporary blip. This could be her life if she stayed.
Yeah. Thinking about the future. Is this something you can actually work through, or is it a fundamental incompatibility? That's the core question.
Okay, fast forward. Update time. OOP takes the advice, sort of. Texts the boyfriend, asks for space.
Okay.
But she clarifies. Says she doesn't want to break up, just needs to reevaluate, wants healthier communication, stop feeling like she's under a microscope 247.
That sounds like a pretty reasonable, mature way to approach it, actually. Trying to fix the issue first.
And his response, drum roll please, accuses her of choosing SB over him.
Predictable, unfortunately.
Right. OOP tries to explain, like, dude, he's just someone I get along with during this weird pandemic thing. I split my time. It's not complicated. But nope.
His reaction just proves it's not about logic, is it? It's driven purely by his insecurity.
Then he starts listing these so-called boyfriend activities she's doing with SB. Driving lessons. Baking bread.
Boyfriend activities. Baking bread. Seriously.
Seriously. And the driving thing, get this. The boyfriend complains his dream was to teach her how to drive.
Okay.
But he doesn't even have a learner's permit himself.
Wait, what? He doesn't have a permit but wanted to teach her.
Yes, the irony. It's almost painful.
That's actually hilarious in how ridiculous it is. It's clearly not about teaching her to drive. It's pure control.
And the baking, the betrayal. SB apparently helped by moving the mixer because it was heavy.
Okay, helpful.
Eating half the almond slices.
Like sibling move.
And taking pics for Instagram. The horror.
Right. So normal sibling stuff being framed as some kind of romantic conspiracy, that shows a real lack of understanding of, normal human relationships.
And of course, he plays the if only you'd moved in card again. Claims that it would have magically fixed everything. OPP stands her ground, though. Reminds him she wasn't going to live somewhere illegally. Wrist fines, eviction, especially since she couldn't even drive herself away if she got kicked out.
Good for her. Prioritizing her own safety and, obeying the law over his demands. That's a really strong moment.
So she basically tells him, look, my relationship with my stepbrother, my family, that's non-negotiable. She says she needs time to cool down.
Setting a clear boundary.
Checks back in a few days later,
and
he's still mad, still accusing her of stuff. Just won't let it go.
So he completely ignored her request for space and respect.
Pretty much. That was it. She texted him, we're done, and hit block. Done. Said she felt sad, but mostly just relieved.
And honestly, given his continued lack of respect for her boundaries, ending it, even by text, seems like the healthiest option to avoid more conflict.
Oh, the Reddit comments on the update were amazing.
Right.
The whole dreaming of teaching her to drive without a license thing.
Yeah.
Instant classic.
I bet.
People were ruthless. Guess he taught her all he knew. Nothing. Maybe he was teaching her how to drive herself crazy. My favorite was, my dream was to teach you to drive yourself nuts so I wouldn't have to.
That dark humor really just highlights the absolute absurdity of his position. It's validating for her, too.
Totally. Everyone was praising OOP for seeing through his BS. Someone said, he knew what he was doing. He just hoped you wouldn't.
Ooh, that's insightful. And probably true sometimes.
And lots of comments framing it as a hard lesson learned about spotting those red flags early.
The wisdom of the crowd effect again. Often easier to see patterns from the outside.
The boyfriend activities thing got absolutely roasted too. Sarcasm everywhere about driving lessons being the hot new date idea.
Right.
Then everyone started sharing their own horror stories about learning to drive from their parents. Universal trauma.
Which just emphasizes how normal and often stressful that experience is completely detached from his weird romantic spin on it. He sounds really immature.
And the whole, I'm the guy, so I should teach you vibe.
Yeah.
The comments went to town on that. The penis haver logic, they called it.
Yeah, the humor is a good way to kind of deflate that possessive attitude.
Someone compared him to like a dad guarding the grill at a BBQ. How dare someone else touch the tongs?
That's a good analogy, actually.
And someone else floated the idea that maybe he didn't want her to learn to drive, to keep her dependent.
Ooh, that's an interesting, darker possibility. Controlling behavior can be subtle like that, limiting independence.
Yeah. And his dream. Nobody bought it. Everyone figured it was just a made-up excuse he invented on the spot.
Sounds likely. A flimsy manipulation tactic.
Got compared to mansplaining, naturally. People came up with wilder dreams, like him wanting to teach her open heart surgery after watching one YouTube tutorial.
Okay, yeah, the internet does what it does best, but it does show how weak his argument was.
But it wasn't all jokes. Some serious stuff came up. Older commenters shared stories about their past controlling relationships, recognizing the signs.
Which is so valuable. Hearing that others went through similar things, especially when you're young, can be really validating and eye-opening.
They pointed out the isolation tactic trying to cut her off from family as a huge danger sign.
Absolutely. It's a classic abuser tactic.
And then, it's the internet. Someone brought up the step-sibling porn angle.
Yeah.
Suggesting maybe that's why he was so fixated. The comments got colorful.
Right. While maybe crude, the underlying point is that his view of their relationship might have been skewed by some unhealthy ideas or assumptions.
Someone else predicted that even if she had moved in, he'd have just gotten jealous of the roommates next.
Probably true. Insecurity tends to find new targets.
The 3-4 hours of daily FaceTime demand, everyone agreed that was completely nuts. Just bonkers.
Way over the top.
And some solid advice emerged. Stop trying to explain yourself to people who refuse to listen. Just walk away.
Setting boundaries and enforcing them when they're crossed is key. If someone won't respect them, the relationship probably isn't healthy.
There were some fun pandemic references too. Tiger King got a mention.
Yeah.
And just loads of people saying, yeah, learning to drive or bake from your sibling is totally normal.
Lots of shared experiences.
Sharing their own stories about learning that stuff from family really put his reactions into perspective.
Exactly. It normalized her situation and highlighted how abnormal his behavior was.
And the unlicensed driving instructor thing just kept coming back. It was just too ridiculous to let go.
It really is the perfect encapsulation of his irrationality.
So the final Reddit verdict was pretty unanimous. OOP dodged a massive bullet. Breakup was 100% the right call, revealed his true colors.
Seems like it. A painful experience, but ultimately freeing for her.
And SP's help with the baking, eating the ingredients. Totally normal sibling stuff. Nothing to see there.
Exactly. Standard sibling tact.
Okay, let's wrap this up. The bottom line here, boyfriend was radiating insecurity, jealousy, and control. Big time. Misunderstood sibling relationships, maybe watch some weird stuff online.
Yeah.
Who knows? But Reddit agreed. Breakup city, population.
Him. The key things to take away, I think, are just how absurd his demands became, the driving lessons fantasy being peak absurdity, and the clear pattern of controlling behavior, trying to isolate her. Major red flags.
For sure. And for you listening, maybe the takeaway is trust your gut. If something feels off, if someone's making you feel constantly watched or controlled, that's not okay.
Relationships should build you up, not tie you down.
Exactly.
And it's interesting how something like a pandemic can really amplify underlying issues. You know, it puts relationships under a microscope. Those seemingly small demands, those little insecurities, sometimes they're the first sign of a much bigger problem waiting down the line. Something to think about.
Well said. Okay, go forth and enjoy your platonic backyard picnics. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.